Welcome to coding module. Today we will create another Excel VBA app and this time is a quiz app. So before we start with the coding, let me show you first how this tool will work. So here we have three worksheets. The start where you can click the start button and view records. And then we also have a record worksheet that will contain all the result of my quiz or the user quiz. And then here we have the quiz worksheet that contains the questions, the answers, and the choices to our quiz. It's just a basic app because we don't use database. We are just creating a concept here. So in the following video, we will be using database, but for now, let's use this concept in building a basic quiz app using an Excel VBA. So when you click start in here, it will ask for your name. Let's say, for example, I am Jando, and I'll click start, and then it will pull the quiz items from my quiz worksheet and display it here, and we have four choices here. So if you select one button, it will be highlighted and click submit to move to the next question. So that's just how this tool will work. I will just complete. Since I only have 10 items in here, you can see that once I reach the last question of my quiz, the submit button caption is changed to end exam. And if I click this, it will show me my name as well as the score that I got from the quiz. Alright, so you can see that on the record sheet. Now that you see how this tool will work, we can start with the coding. So, uh, So we will start from this layout. I will not cover how to do this layout since I'm not that good in design. But if you want to follow, if you want to code as well, I have this site, I have this design uploaded in my website. So you can visit this site. I will put the link in the description of the video. I have here the guide and the code as well, but if you want to code it from scratch, you can download this file. It already contains this outline and all these worksheet here, including the form, so you can save time doing this. All right, so now we can start. So here again, as I explained earlier, we have three worksheets. You know what's the purpose of this, as well as the record and this quiz. So on the file that I have on my website, you already have this data or sample quiz data as well. But you can change that if you want, depending on your prepared quiz. So now let's start by opening the VBA editor. You can press Alt F11 in your keyboard, or if you have the developer tab available, just click this Visual Basic button and it will do the same thing. And here we have three user form. First one is the one that will ask for the username, the quiz where uh, it will display the questions and answer to each quiz item, and then of course the score based on the quiz result. And we also have here one module, and later we will use this for declaration of some variable. So maybe it's good that we start with our module. Again, option explicit, it's a best practice or a good practice to use that, so you can avoid using a variable without declaring it first. So let me first declare my worksheets variable. So I have three, start records and quiz. So I will name them, oops, I will name them public S SSH for the start. So I'll just label that. And then RSH for the record. And then QSH, it should be worksheet, not worksheet. So for the quiz tab, let me change this one first. All right, and after we declare our worksheet, let's create our first subroutine. I will name this init sh. And the purpose of this subroutine is just to initialize my worksheet variable. So we will be using the set because our worksheet is an object type. So SSH is equals to set RSH equals to, and QSH equals. So it's a good practice to do it this way so that every time you need your worksheet, you don't need to always declare them. Okay, so now I guess we can jump on our first user form. So, before that, we have this start button here, and the purpose of this is when this button is clicked, it should launch the first user form, the user form that asking for name. So with that, let's also add a subroutine for launching the first user form. I will just call it like start, and then we will just call the fr name that show once that has been clicked. So now let me go back to my worksheet and I will assign that macro in this button. So assign macro and select the start. Now we can test it, and we don't have a code yet for this. So now let's proceed with that user form. Going back to VBA editor, that is open. So here, what we just need to do is to add a code to the start button. And let me remove this, we don't need that. So when the user clicks starts, we need to validate if he or she inputs a value for the name field. So we'll say if txt name is the name of the text box. So if she or he enters name, we have to save his or her name. If not, we will give him a message box. Please enter your name. It's exclamation. And all right, so here's another thing. Since we usually use message box in our code, and we need to add a title to it. What I could advise to you is create a constant variable for your message box title. Instead of using a different title for each message box, we can use just one, like the application name. So I will declare one variable for my message box title. I will use constant m title for message box title. It's of type string, and I will just name it quiz up, so that if I go back to my frm main, I will just use that variable name. And for the username, we can also save this to a public variable, and the best place to declare that is again in our module. So let me go back here, and I will create another variable for my username. And if we go back to our frm name, we can just assign the value to that variable. And after the user enter username, then we need to launch the next uh, user form, which is the frm quiz. So let's say frm quiz that show, and we need to unload this first user form. So now we can test that. Before we proceed, click start. I'll name myself Joe, and now it launch our uh, quiz user form. Okay, so now next step is to code this next user form. So here, the first thing that we need to do here is so I will declare a private variable that will hold the the button that the user clicks. So let me view code. Then let's create here a private button click. Let's name it string. So we can put A, B, C, or D depending on the button. And I declare it private. So you may notice sometimes I use public, then sometimes I use private. So if it's public, meaning it's accessible to any framework or module, then if it's private, then this variable is only accessible within this user form. So now let me go back here, and if the user click this button click should be equals to letter A. Maybe we can use the answer format in the sample data. Okay, so this is the format. So I will use this value instead of just a letter A. So we can say that's letter A, and we'll do the same for the other button. This is B, and this is C. Oops, don't forget to change it. And this is D. All right. And another thing, every time the user clicks a button, that button should be highlighted with a different color so that user can review his choice. So let me copy this button first, and I will look for a color that we can use for the selected button. Maybe this one or a green one. Okay, so I will use this one. And the color of that button is this. So let me try that to our first button. So to change the back color of our button, we will just say command A that back color is equals to this. So that's the green color. And then the other button should be set to this color. So let me click that again and CMDB that back color, because if we don't do that, then every time we click each button, then every button will get highlighted with color green. So we need to make sure that the other button color will reset to the original color. So this is CMDC, and this is the CMDD. Alright, and we'll do the same with the other button. So this should be for button B. And again, copy that here. And the green color should be on the C button. And last one is for the D button. We need to put that color in here. Alright, save that and let's test it first. We can click this run button and now it's highlighted. Okay, so we need to remove this button before I forgot. We don't need them. We know we don't need it. So the next step here is we need to also create a subroutine that will reset all the button color. So let me just call that reset button color, and I will copy this again and make sure that all button color will back to the original color. All right. So next, we need a variable that we can use as reference to know what is the current question number. So I will declare it as private again. It should be an integer. We only have 10 questions, so integer data type should be fine. And we need to set this variable initial value to 1 when the user form is initialized. So we'll look for the initialize event. Make sure you are within the user form object and look for the initialize. Then let's remove this click. And here we will set the question number equals to 1 because that's the first question number. And it's also good if we call here our init sh or subroutine, which initialize our worksheet variable. And then we can also add I'm thinking where should I put the score variable? Maybe it's better if we put that to our to our module. So let me go back here to our module and I will create a public variable for the score. It will contain a number, so we'll use an integer data type. All right. So next step is we need to create a subroutine that will get our quiz items here, depending on the question number. So later we need to do some calculation because our question number is equals to 1 and you can notice here that the first question starts at row number 2. So now let's create a subroutine for that. I will give some space to my code. I will name this get quiz and right, probably it's better if we have a variable, a private variable. We cannot declare the variable here because we will be accessing the quiz item details later on different part of the user form. So it's better to declare that here. So let's have a variable for the question. It should be of type string. And then we also need a variable for the code. It should be a string as well. And an option A, a string, B, a string. Let's declare the other here. C, a string, and D, a string. And another one for the answer. It should also be of type string. So this variable later will contain the quiz item details, the question, the code, the each choices, which will be stored to A, B, C, and D, and of course the answer, so we can validate if the user answered the question right or wrong. Now that we have those variable, we can now get the current quiz item. All right, so we need to access the quiz sh or qsh variable because that's where our questions are. So I will say question, the variable question, we will set it to qsh that range. Question is in column A, so I will say A. And okay, so the question number is equals to 2. So we need to increment our question number variable. We'll declare a variable here, a local variable for uh, the row as integer. So row is equals to question number plus 1. And we will concatenate that row value here, that value. And we'll do the same for the others. So here is a sample code. There are some questions with sample code, and we will assign that to code variable. That's column B. Then for the next column, it will be for the choices A, B, C, and D. So I will just copy this A, B, C, D. So A, B, C, and D, and change this to C, D, E, F. And our last column is the answer. Oops, G. So G is the last column. All right. So every time we call this get quiz subroutine, we need to first call the reset button caller so that when the next quiz item loads, all the button caller here is this. And after we get this value, we can now assign it to our user form. So this variable, for example, question, we will assign that to Alright, I can scroll to this text box and then the sample code here and of course the choices in this button. So let's do that. There's the view code. So txt question dot value is equals to question. Code is txt sample code dot value is equals to code. A is equals to oh no no cmda dot caption because it's a button. That's equals to A is equals to B. Cmdc dot caption is equals to C equals to D. So for the answer, we will not store it anywhere here, but later we will use that value. So this get quiz, we need to call this when the user form initialize. So the next step here is to add a code to our submit button. So for the submit button, first it needs to validate if the user select or click any of this button. And we can do that by checking the color of each button. So if it's selected, the back color is this. So we will use that for our condition. So here in the CMD submit click action, we will validate if CMDA that back color is equals to this or CMDB that back color is equals to this or oops. Let's go down. CMDC that back color is equals to this or CMDD that back color is equals to this. Then, if any of those condition is true, then meaning there's a selected items. So if there's a selected option, then we'll validate if the answer is correct. So we can do that by using the condition if button click is equals to answer. Remember, answer contains the right answer, and the button click contains the value of the click button by the user. So if that is the same, we will increment the score variable. If not, if it's not correct, then there's no need to do anything there. But if there's no selected button and then the user clicks submit, we can just show a message box asking the user to select an answer. You can use critical and our message box title. And another thing, we need to increment the question number every time we submit answer to each item. So let's say here question number is equals to question number plus 1. All right. And then the last step here for the form quiz is to validate if the user already reached the last question, which is question number 10. Because if that happens, we need to change the caption of this button to end exam from submit. So let's do that. So if question number is equals to 11, we'll use 11 because we still need to calculate the question number 10. Then we will, should we do that here or not? Okay, I think we need to do that in our get quiz subroutine, not here. So sorry for that. Let's go here. So if question number is equals to 11, then 11 or 10? Because 10, maybe 10, maybe it should be 10. Let's see. So if question number is equals to 10, we need to see change the CMD submit that caption to end exam. Alright, so here in the submit button, we need to validate if the caption is end exam because if it is, then we need to finish this user form. And we can do that after checking the last question answer. So if CMD submit that caption is equals to end exam, then what will happen is we will launch the FRM score user form. Let's show. But before we show that user form, we will also update this label caption. So this one is LBL score, this one is LBL name. So to do that, we'll say FRM score that LBL name is equals to username. Remember, we have a public variable for username, and then the FRM score that LBL score should be equals to score. It's another public variable that we have in our module. And then after we show the score user form, we need to unload this user form. And I guess that's all. Let's see if we will if we will get any error after that. But we can also finish this score. This should be just quick. There's nothing to do in here aside from just closing the user form. So you can just say unload me. And another thing before I forgot, we also need to save the quiz record to our record worksheet. So to do that, we can do that after ending the exam. So save the records and that worksheet is the RSH. We need to get first the next available row. So next row as integer, that should be RSH dot range A and rows that if you watch my previous video, I most of the time use this command. It will be helpful if you also memorize this. The purpose of this is to get the next available row on my target worksheet and column. So if I run that, it will return 2 because this is the last row with value and I add 1 to get the next available row. So let's say RSH that range A and next row that value that is for the name. So we can put the username. Next is the date. So and date we can just say now. And the last column is for the score. Alright, I think this should be good. We can now test our code. So this one, another one. It's just a shortcut button. Instead of activating this here, we can add a code to do that by clicking this button. So let me also add that before we test. I will do that in my quiz module. So be record and it's like so I will call my init sh first and say rsh.activate because rsh is the record worksheet. So now we can test. Click the start. I will enter my name coding module. Click the start. And so apologies for this. These are some, I think, new line characters that was not cannot be read by VBA. But anyway, this is just a sample. So I think my user form is a bit big. So let me adjust that because I also adjust my screen resolution so I don't need to zoom out in my video this user form, but it seems I cannot resize it. Can I resize it from here? What's the, is it the width? Alright, maybe we can say 800. Alright, I think this one should be better. And for the height, maybe we can do 600. I can resize it. Right now, let's try again. Click start and enter the name. Hit start and I'll just select. Oh, it's not moving. Alright. So it's because I forgot to call the get quiz. Right. So if we move to the next page, so let's add an else here, meaning if it goes to this block, the caption of our submit button is still submit. So if that is the case, then we will get the next quiz item by calling get quiz. Where's the get quiz? All right. And we also need to update this label here. So let me name that label first, LBL question number. And I'll just say LBL question number, that caption is equals to question number concatenated of 10 because we only have 10 questions. So now let me try it again. Click start. Select an answer, submit. Now it moves to the next question, then the third one, fourth one. So last is question number 10, and you can see here that the button is no longer submit. It's an end exam. So once I click end exam, it will calculate how many items did I got correct, and I have 5. And that is all for this basic app BBA video. Again, if you want to download the layout here and do the same code or apply the same code, you can visit this site and download this layout file I created. You can also reference this guide for the code, and I put some explanation there of some of the functions that I use to build this app. So that's all for this video. Thank you if you watch this. And if you have suggestion of what app should we build next, then just put that on the comment section of the video. Again, thank you and see you on the next video.